Episode 4. Showdown in Pewter City. Somewhere on the path to Pewter City, there is a large hole and someone is digging it to make it bigger. Suddenly, Team Rocket is saying their motto, Jesse, to protect the world from devastation. James, to unite all peoples within our nation. Jesse and James, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse, Jesse, James, James. Suddenly, Meowth comes out of the hole and places the shovel through the dirt. He angrily says, Meowth, I don't get why you two are always talking and I'm stuck doing all the work. We haven't got much time. If they're heading for Pewter City, they'll have to pass this way, Jesse says. And they'll fall right into our trap, James says. Soon, all three begin to dig a large pit hole. Meowth says, Come on, dig it deeper, and we'll cover it up so well, they'll never guess it's a trap. Ha! Perfect. Soon, they put wooden bars on it. Then, they cover it with leaves and dirt. Now the hole is gone completely. Suddenly, James panics. I can't even tell where the trap is. They move to one spot, and Jesse asks, Wasn't it here? Is this it? James questions as they move to another. They move again, and Jesse asks, Where did it go? It's over there, Meowth adds, and they all move to the middle of the road. Soon, the three try to remember where the trap they set is located. Suddenly, they move down and look down to notice that the trap is right under their feet. The fake dirt, leaves, and wooden cage gives out, and they fall right in and are being buried in dirt. Meanwhile, Mew and her friends continue their journey and are finally out of the Viridian Forest. The group continue to walk on the stone path until they see a city over the horizon. Yay! Pewter City, Mew sighs in relief. Phew. For a while there I thought was going to be in this forest for the rest of my life. Chew. Me too, Pikachu says. Eve. Yeah, Eevee replies. Suddenly a man says, Pewter City is grey, the colour of stone. This town has always been famous for stone. Huh? Mew says, looking down. The four look down to see a man with tan skin, brown beard and his hair, hidden in a red hat. He also wears a beige shirt, white gloves, dark green pants, and black shoes. Mew turns to Misty. Who is he? Never met him, Misty answers. The man says, The name's Flint, and some of you are sitting on some of my merchandise. Realizing she means the rock, Mech quickly gets up and says, Oh, sorry. She then notices that the rocks here have some price labels on it, one of the things she has learned while living among humans. Then Mew asks, You mean you sell rocks? Pewter City souvenirs. Want to buy some? Flint says. No, thank you. I'm traveling, trying to become a Pokémon trainer. But first, we're going to the Pokémon Center. Mew replies. Good choice. Your Pokémon may be worn out. Why don't you follow me? I'll show you to the Pokémon Center, Flint says. Thank you, Mew says. Flint then walks away. Mew turns to Misty. See? Looks can be deceiving. He's a really nice guy. Are you sure? Misty asks. Suddenly, Flint walks back and says, By the way, that'll be a $2 charge for resting on my rocks. The girls and two Pokémon fall over disbelief. Sometime later, Mew, Misty, and the Pokémon arrive at the Pokémon Center. Mew has all her Pokémon on the tray while Eevee and Pikachu stand on the counter with the egg. Please, revitalize my Pokémon, Mew says. Sure, right away, Mew, Nurse Joy says. Confused, Mew asks, Huh? Nurse Joy? Yes, I'm Nurse Joy, Nurse Joy says. But this isn't Viridian City. This is Pewter City, Mew replies. Nurse Joy says, "The Joy in Viridian City is my little sister. I'm the older Joy. I've heard nice things about you. Very nice." Thank you," Mew replies. Nurse Joy takes the Pokemon, Pokeballs, and egg as she asks, "Did you see that poster?" Mew turns their heads to see the poster on the wall. It has a hand holding a Pokeball being surrounded by symbols representing a Pokemon type. The sign reads, "Pokemon League Regional Championships enter the competition. The Pokemon Regional Championship." "Wow," Mew says, interested. "It's amazing. However, to compete in the regional championship, you need to beat gym trainers from different towns and get their badges as proof," Misty says. "Badges? If I remember what Professor Oak told me, badges are like proof that you defeated a gym leader, right?" Mew asks. "That's right. Gym leaders' Pokemon are actually stronger than other trainers' Pokemon, and each gym has a specific type of Pokemon they battle," Misty says. Mew smiles. "You know a lot." "Oh, I don't know about," Misty says, blushing. "Well, I'm actually planning on competing in the gym battles too. I wonder if there's a gym here," Mew says. Suddenly, they hear laughter and turn to see Flint. Flint walks up to them and says, "Don't tell me you two plan on challenging Brock, the Pewter City gym leader." "Of course we do. As soon as Pikachu and the other Pokemon are all better, we'll have no problem," Mew says. Flint laughs and says, "You will beat him," then walks away and is still laughing. Mew puffs her cheeks, irritated. Meanie. Later on, Mew and Misty decide to get something to eat. At the same time, Mew also decides to look up the gym with her guidebook. Of course, Misty is helping her with some advice, since it's the first time she's going to be battling a gym leader. "Thanks for helping me, Misty," Mew says. "It's no trouble, but you have to remember, gym leaders are different from your everyday Pokemon trainer. They're much, much tougher," Misty says. Mew nods her head. "Right." She then reads the guidebook and says, "According to the book, the Pewter City gym leader specializes in rock-type Pokemon. It's probably good to use water-type Pokemon for this battle. You have a Shelder and a Poliwag, so they'll have the advantage," Misty says. "Yeah, but I'm still a little nervous. I have never battled with a gym leader before. I'm not sure if I can win or not," Mew says. "Well, you never know until we get to that gym and battle Brock," Misty says. Mew says, "You're right. I should be worried if I do well or not. I should go over there and find out." Misty smiles in reply. After that, Mew and Misty arrive at the counter, and Nurse Joy brings back her Pokemon, her Pokeballs, and egg. "Well, Mew, no more waiting. All your Pokemon are all back to normal," Nurse Joy says. "Thank you, Nurse Joy," Mew says. Pikachu and Eevee jump on Mew's shoulders as she puts her egg and Pokeballs back in the bag. Soon enough, the group walks down the city and arrives at the Pewter City Gym. The building looks like it's made of stone. "So this is the Pewter Gym? It looks like it's made of rocks," Mew says. "Yeah, talk about accurate," Misty says. Mew then opens the door to the building and walks inside with Misty and her Pokemon close by. Mew calls out, "Hello." The group continues to walk inside the gym and look around for the leader of it. "This place is really dark," Misty says. "Yeah," Mew replies. Suddenly, someone says, "Who goes there?" The girls become startled to see a young man a few years older than they are. He is wearing an orange shirt, green vest, brown pants, and grey and white colour shoes. He also has 2 pouches attached to his belt and is sitting on the ground. Mew asks, "Are you Brock, the Pewter City gym leader?" "That's right," the young man answers. Mew takes a deep breath and says, I'm Mew from Pallet Town, and I challenge you to a match. Is this your first gym match? Brock asks. Yes, Mew answers. A gym match is different from other battles. This match is for Pokemon League authorization. There are special rules, Brock says. Okay. So what are the rules? Mew asks. Brock stands up and says, we will use 2 Pokemon each. Understood? Okay, Mew says. Alright then, let's begin the match. Brock says, and snaps his fingers. The lights turn on and the hatch doors open. Soon, a different floor begins to move in the field, so Mew and the others are forced to move out of the way. Soon, a rocky battlefield is now standing before them. Brock jumps off the platform and onto the battlefield. He then brings out his Pokeball. Lets the match begin. All right, Mew says, then brings out her Pokeball. Poliwag, I choose you. She throws her Pokeball and Poliwag comes out of it. Brock throws his Pokeball and calls out, Geodude, go. The Pokeball hits the ground and opens to reveal a small rock creature with only 2 rock arms. Geodude, huh? Mew says, and brings out her Pokedex. Geodude the Rock Pokemonday. A rock and ground type. It climbs mountain paths using only the power of its arms. Because they look just like boulders lining paths, hikers may step on them without noticing. On the catwalk, Misty, Eevee, and Pikachu are watching the battle. Pikachu and Eevee want to see Mew battle and hope she'll win. Mew nods her head, then calls out, Poliwag, let's start this with Bubble Beam. Poliwag then begins to spray Bubble Beam and they are sent flying towards Geodude. Geodude, dodge, and use Tackle. Brock calls out. Geodude dodges the attack and tackles Poliwag. Poliwag slides on the field, but able to stand on its 2 feet. Okay, Poliwag. Now try your Water Pulse attack. Poliwag then performs Water Pulse and strikes at Geodude, causing it damage. Geodude, are you alright? Brock asks. Geodude floats up and answers. Geode, I'm alright. That's good, Brock says, then calls out. Geodude, use Sandstorm. Geodude creates a powerful sandstorm that blinds Mew and Poliwag. Soon, everyone is in shock that the sandstorm is covering their battle. That's a lot of sand, Mew says. Poliwag, it's hard to see, Poliwag says. Brock then calls out, Geodude, use your tackle attack. Geodude then tackles Poliwag and sends it out of the sandstorm as it clears. Mew asks, Poliwag, can you still battle? Poliwag is able to stand up and answer, Polly, I still can. Geodude, use Rock Throw. Brock calls out. Geodude then creates multiple rocks and throws them towards Poliwag. Mew calls out, Poliwag, use Bubble Beam to repel the attack. Poliwag then performs Bubble Beam and is able to counter the rock throw. Brock says, alright Geodude, use Tackle. Geodude begins to speed towards Poliwag. Poliwag, dodge and use Bubble Beam, Mew calls out. Poliwag then dodges the attack and performs Bubble Beam with full force. And then, Poliwag then whacks Geodude with its tail, making it dizzy and falling to the ground. Mew happily says, You did it, Poliwag, you won! Poliwag, yeah. Poliwag cheers and jumps in the air. Seeing the battle, Misty says, Mew did a great job, and that Poliwag is so cute, and a tough cookie. Eevee? Cookie? Mew says, confused. Pikachu. I think it's a figure of speech, Pikachu says. Eve. Oh, Eevee replies. Suddenly, both Pokemon hear Misty say, but Mew still have one more Pokemon to beat, and the next one might be tough. Brock returns Geodude to its Pokeball. You did a good job, Geodude. then turns his head to see Mew kneeling down to Poliwag. "You're doing great. Poliwag, are you up for one more match, or do you want to rest?" Mew replies to Poliwag. Poliwag. "Don't worry, I can handle the next one," Poliwag says. "Okay, but let me know if you want to rest." "Okay," Mew says. Poliwag nods his head. "Polly, okay." Brock smiles and says in his thought, "That trainer is something else. She truly understands and cares for her Pokémon." Mew says to Poliwag, "Okay, Poliwag, give everything you got." Poliwag, "Right," Poliwag says, and ready to battle. Brock then throws his Pokeball as he calls out, "Onyx, go." The Pokeball opens and a giant rock snake comes out of the Pokeball. Mew and Poliwag are shocked to see the giant rock snake in front of them. "That's an Onyx," Mew says. She brings out her Pokedex and Dexter says, "Onyx, the rock snake Pokemon, a rock and ground type. As it digs through the ground, it absorbs many hard objects. This is what makes its body so solid. That looks like one tough opponent. Do your best, Poliwag," Mew says. Poliwag, "Right," Poliwag says. "Okay, Onyx, use tackle," Brock says. Onyx then dodges the attack. Mew calls out, "Poliwag, watch out." Poliwag turns its head and is hit by Onyx. Then Onyx performs the bind attack on Poliwag. Onyx has Poliwag coiled round its tail and begins to give it a hard squeeze. "Poliwag," Mew exclaims. Misty, Pikachu, and Eevee grow worried to see Poliwag is in trouble. Suddenly, they look to see 10 young kids who look a lot like Brock are now watching the battle as well. Misty looks and asks, "Hey, where did you come from? We want to watch our brother battle," one of the girls answer. "Your brother?" Misty says, confused. The eldest boy points to Brock. "That's him." Misty looks and soon connects the dots to realize all of these kids are related to Brock. "Poliwag, are you okay?" Mew asks. Polly, I think so. I think I can break free," Poliwag says, struggling to break free. Onyx continues to use the attack on Poliwag as Poliwag continues to struggle to break free. "Poliwag, you don't have to do this anymore," Mew says. Poliwag shakes his head and says, "Poliwag, Poliwag. No, I can get out. I can still win." "But why?" Mew asks. Poliwag. "Because I want to become strong for myself and for you," Poliwag says. Hearing this, Mew is surprised. "For me?" That's when you realize, are you saying that you want to become strong for yourself and want to become strong to help me? Poliwag nods his head despite the struggle. Poliwag, "Yes, I want to become strong." Mew understands Poliwag. It wants to become strong, not just for her, but also for itself as well. Mew smiles and says, "I understand. Now let's give it everything we got. Use Bubble Beam." Poliwag turns its head and is able to perform Bubble Beam at Onyx. Finally, it lands on the ground. "Alright, Poliwag, let's win this," Mew says. Poliwag, "Yes, let's win this," Poliwag says. Suddenly, Poliwag begins to glow and the blue light shines across the area. Song, Doragon, Gusuto, Jim and Hiko, Dragon, Ghost, Ground, Flyin', Doku, Mushi, Mizu, Denki, Iwa, Kusa, Aku, Poison, Bug, Water, Electric, Rock, Grass. Everyone in the building becomes surprised to see Poliwag glowing. Song, Kuri Numaru Onu Kakuto Ice, Normal Fire Fighting, Hagane Esupa Feri, Steel, Psychic, Fairy, Misty, Pikachu, and Eevee are surprised, but are also smiling. Poliwag, Misty says, amazed. Song, Sakoko Kara, Ga Buken, Da Hikari, no saki, no hate maid. Now then, my adventure starts here. It will take me beyond the light. Poliwag begins to glow as it becomes taller and larger. It even begins to gain arms as its legs grow as well. Song. Sora, Kara, Koboreta, Namida, no ame kakiwake, as I push my way through the rain of tears falling from the heavens. Soon the light disappears, revealing Poliwag has changed forms. It's now a blue, bipedal Pokémon with a spherical body. It has bulbous eyes that protrude from the top of its head. A black and white swirl covers its belly. It now has arms with white gloves on its hands and rounded and digitless feet. Misty says, surprised, it evolved. Song. Sayuki dashite, iko ka kino, no boku ni katsu tame. Now then, I'll work up my courage and go to surpass my yesterday self. Donna Dei, Mo Takara Day. Every encounter on my way is precious, Pikachu says, amazed. Pika Pika, Poliwag evolved. Eevee, it's Poliwell. Eevee adds song. Doki 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 Challenger, I'm a super excited challenger. Poliwell, Mew says, and brings out her Pokédex. Song. Itsuka, Kanarazu, Kanaru, Yumega, Aru. I have dreams that will definitely come true one day. The Pokédex says, Poliwhirl, the tadpole Pokémon, a water type. It can live in or out of water. When out of water, it constantly sweats to keep its body slimy. Alright, Poliwhirl, Mew happily says. Song. Kimi ga oshiete kureta, no sasuda kara, koso tabi ni deru. That's what you taught me, and indeed, that's why I'm Journey. Brock smiles. That kid is tougher than she looks, and the bond with her Pokémon is even stronger. Then calls out, alright, let's finish this. Onyx, use Iron Tail. Onyx makes its tail glow and swings it to Poliwhirl. Mew calls out, dodge it. Poliwhirl dodges the attack. Then Mew says, now use Bubble Beam. Song. Akai Kizuna, no wa ga dekaku hirogatara. Red bonds connects us in a circle and expand. Poliwhirl, then Bubble Beam and strike at Onyx with full force. Alright, let's do Bubble Beam once more, Mew says. Mew then begins to perform another attack, but suddenly it comes out differently. Song. Aoi Bokura, no Hoshi, no Kibu wa Kagayai. Blue is our planet, and its hope shines bright. Poliwhirl glows blue and raises its hands in the air, then makes a giant whirlpool over its head. Everyone becomes surprised to see this attack, especially Mew. Mew takes out her Pokédex and sees the move. Whirlpool. You learned how to use Whirlpool. Then calls out, alright Poliwhirl, use Whirlpool. Song. Kiiroi Hanaga Saku, yellow flowers blossom. Poliwhirl then uses the power of Whirlpool and strikes it at Onyx with full force. Onyx is soon strikes by the Whirlpool and is slammed to the wall with some smoke appearing around the area. Brock quickly turns his head. Onyx! Song. Doragon, Gusuto, Jimin, Hiko Dragon, Ghost, Ground, Flyin, Doku, Mushi, Mizu, Denki, Iwa, Kusa, Aku Poison, Bug, Water, Electric, Rock, Grass. The smoke begins to clear as it shows Onyx's appearance. Mew and the others, including the gym leader, wait for the result. Song. Kuri Numaru Onu, Kakuto, Ice, Normal, Fire, Fighting, Hagane, Esupa, Fairy, Steel, Psychic, Fairy. When the smoke clears, they see Onyx is knocked out. Mew and Poliwhirl stand in place, looking surprised to see Onyx is knocked out. We We won, Mew softly says, then smiles and screams, We won! Misty claps her hands as Pikachu and Eevee cheer with excitement. Mew then runs up to Poliwhirl and hugs it. You were great, Poliwhirl. You evolved and won your first gym match, Mew happily says. Poliwhirl. Yeah. I feel great, Poliwhirl happily says. Brock then calls back Onyx. Onyx return. He then turns to Mew to see her hugging her Pokémon. Sometime later, Brock, along with Mew and her Pokémon, and Misty are outside of the gym with his brothers and sisters. Brock presents a small badge. It's grey and shapes like an octagon. Brock says, This is for you. This boulder badge is proof that you beat me. Mew takes the badge. Thank you, Brock. I had a fantastic battle. Won. Me too, Brock says. You were great. One of Brock's brothers, Forrester says. One of Brock's sisters says, Yeah, that battle was amazing. Thanks, Mew says. Then Misty turns to Brock. You know, you could become a great Pokémon trainer and compete in the championships. I suppose, but I'm afraid I can't. To tell you all the truth, I get more pleasure from raising Pokémon than from making them battle. I don't care about being the best Pokémon trainer. I want to become the world's best breeder, Brock says. Really? Mew asks. Yes, but I can't leave from here because I have to look after my brothers and sisters, Brock says. How come? Mew asks. What about your parents? Misty asks. Well, my father left home to become a Pokémon trainer, but we haven't heard of him since. As for my mum, she's more of a go out and see the world type and not into the domestic stuff, Brock says. We're sorry, Misty says. That's okay. Brock is an amazing big brother, Forrester says. The girl, Yolanda, says, Yeah, Brock is able to cook, clean, sew, and, well, he can do practically anything. He's the best big brother, Cindy replies. Sounds like you're very resourceful, Brock, Misty says. Thanks. Plus, I'm really glad to meet you too. And Mew, that was a great battle, and you definitely showed how much you cared for Pokémon. I do wish you luck on your journey, Brock says. Mew smiles and says, You too, Brock. Suddenly, they hear a familiar voice. You go follow your own dreams. The group turns their heads to see a familiar face. Flint, the girls answer, confused. The man then removes his beard and hat, and to their shock, the man looks exactly like Brock. Everyone is surprised, especially Brock and his siblings. My father, Brock sternly says. It doesn't take long for the girls to realize who the guy's true identity is. You mean you're Brock's father, who left home and never came back? Mew asks. That's right. It was me. I couldn't become the great Pokémon trainer I wanted to, and because I was such a failure, I was too embarrassed and ashamed to go back to my family, Flint says. I guess that's understandable, but I don't think you should have to hide from Brock and his brothers and sisters, Misty says. Mew nods her head in reply. Flint nods his head and says, It's time I started taking care of my family. You go fulfill your dreams and mine. First, there are some things I have to tell you, Brock says. After all these years, I understand how you must feel about me, so I want you to get everything off your chest, Flint says. Brock then brings something out of his pocket and gives it to Flint. Here. Flint and everyone else looks confused to see Brock has handed his dad a needle and thread. Brock then explains, Susie always rips her dresses, so you better learn how to sew. And Timmy always eats cold spaghetti for breakfast. Tommy likes cornflakes for dinner. Slow down. Slow down. I can't write that fast. Flint panics, then brings out notebook and pencil and writes them all down. Brock continues. Cindy sleepwalks, so you have to tie a bell on her wrist. And the twins never want to take a bath, so you have to. Later in the night, Brock is now traveling with Mew, Eevee, Pikachu and Misty. Hey guys, are you sure it's okay if I go with you on your Pokémon journey? Brock asks. Sure, we're sure. The more the merrier. It's nice to have another friend around, Mew says. Okay, Brock says, then turns to Misty. So Misty, how did you start traveling with Mew? Well, it was actually an accident after Mew took and accidentally fried my bike, Misty says. Mew blushes and says, yeah, I said she can come until I can find a way to repay her for her bike. But I did forgive her. She was worried about her Pokémon at the time, Misty says. Anyway, we should set up camp and find a good spot. Last one to find a spot is a Slowpoke, Mew says, and begins to run up the train. Wait up, Mew, Brock says, running after them. Hey, I don't want to be the Slowpoke, Misty says, and hurries after them. And so with a new friend and the city of Pewter City behind them, Mew continues on her quest to become a Pokémon trainer. Meanwhile, a drill appears on the ground and creates a hole on the ground. Coming out of the hole is Team Rocket. James says, I told you I'd got us out of here. This was all, Jessie scolds. Suddenly, Mew steps on Jessie's head. Then Pikachu and Eevee step on Meowth's face. Then Brock steps on James' face. Jessie angrily screams, Your fault. Then Misty steps on Jessie's head as she calls out, Wait for me. The group continue to race against each other down the path in the night, leaving Team Rocket in their hole. Jessie groans, buried alive, then trampled. Jessie and James scream, We hit rock bottom. Then all three fall as a result of the ground collapsing under their feet. Looks like Team Rocket is foiled again by their own trap. Episode 5, Clefairy and the Moonstone. Mew and her friends are hiking toward a mountain called Mount Moon. There have been strange and astonishing tales told about this mysterious place. Pikachu and Eevee are fast asleep. Both Pokémon are sleeping in Mew's bag. Mount Moon. Doesn't the name sound romantic? Misty says. People say that a huge meteor crashed into the mountain back in prehistoric times. Brock says. A meteor? Mew says, interested. Then Misty asks, Is it really true? The meteor is called the Moonstone. Brock says, Now that's romantic, Misty says. I remember Professor Oak told me that the Moonstones are used to help some Pokémon evolve, Mew says. Suddenly, they hear a loud scream, waking the two Pokémon up. Mew looks ahead. Look! Over there! The group rushes over to see. The group rushes to help the one who is in distress. Up ahead, a large flock of blue and purple color bats, known as Zubats, are attacking a man with short brown hair, wearing a lab coat and glasses. When Mew and her friends arrive, they see the man being attacked by Zubats. Those are Zubats, Mew says. They're attacking that guy, Misty says. Mew brings out her Pokédex, and Dexter says, Zubat, the bat Pokémon, a poison and flying type. This flying Pokémon with supersonic powers. Zubat lives in caves and hates to fly outside in daylight. Something is wrong, unless they have a trainer. Wild Zubats usually sleep in the day and hate sunlight, Mew says. We'll have to worry about that later. That guy needs help, Mew says. Right, Mew says with a nod. Then she calls out, Pikachu, Thundershock! Pikachu, who is standing on Mew's head, lights up his cheeks and electricity comes out. The man in trouble turns his head to see Mew and Pikachu. Pikachu jumps up and sends out a Thundershock to the bat Pokémon. They are electrocuted and they fly back into the cave. The man who is laying on the ground is still in pain from the attack. Mew runs to the man holding Pikachu and Eevee and asks, Are you okay? Suddenly, the man stands up and hugs Mew. Wow, you guys were the greatest. Really? It was nothing, Mew muffles, being squished. Same with Pikachu and Eevee, being sandwiched between his trainer and the man. the man says in excitement. I'm talking super fantabulistic. I mean, 2 thumbs up, way up, the best rescue I've ever had. Unable to stand it, Pikachu lets out a thunderbolt, electricity and both in the process. The man falls to the ground, but Mew isn't fazed by it. Eevee, however, does feel the attack. The man stands up again and says, "They say that man's best friend is a Pokémon. And with those 2, I believe it." "Oh, that's nice," Mew replies. The man happily says, "I'm so moved. Such friendship I thought I'd never see when the Zubat began attacking me. I thought I was done for, but who should arrive? Some heroes, thanks to whom I'm alive." Then screams at the top of his lunges, "I'm alive!" His yell echoes through the mountain. "Thank you so much. Thank you." "He certainly doesn't look like the poetic type," Misty says. The man walks over to them and says, "Did I mention how grateful I am?" "Yeah. Anyway, why were the Zubat attacking you, mister?" Mew asks. The man gasps and says, "Never call me mister. My name is Seymour. Seymour the scientist. Knowledge. Research. I'm Seymour the scientist." The 3 humans and 2 Pokémon look at Seymour with confused expressions. Mew then asks, So why were the Zubats attacking you?" "Follow me, I'll show you," Seymour says. The group enters the cave and walks deep inside. They notice that lights are on the ceiling and lighting up the whole cave. See? The cave is all lit up inside. Somebody has strung these lights through the whole cave. But the Pokémon in this cave need the dark. These lights are upsetting them and making them confused, Seymour says. Which is probably why the Zubat left the cave and attacked you, Brock suspects. Seymour turns his head and says, "Look here. These paras are planting their mushrooms everywhere." The group turns their heads to see the orange grab Pokémon. Paras are putting their mushrooms on the ground. "And the hot lights are drying up these Sandshrew," Seymour adds. And they see the Sandshrew laying down and looking weak. "Poor Sandshrew," Mew says, worried. Mew hurries to the Sandshrew and kneels down to it. Mew then brings a water bottle with a cup, an oran berry, and some Pokémon food. Mew pours the water in the cup and presents it to Sandshrew. "Here, it will make you feel better," Mew says. The Sandshrew then drinks the water and feels a little better, and is able to stand up. "Here's an oran berry and some Pokémon food for you," Mew says. The Sandshrew then eats the oran berry and the Pokémon food, and feels good as new. "Sandshrew, thank you," Mew happily says. "You're welcome." "Wow. Your friend has a way with Pokémon, and I never seen anyone who is this caring," Seymour says. "That's Mew, all right, helping Pokémon in need," Misty says. Then Seymour grows concerned. "Still, that's why I'm here, on patrol to protect the mountain from the troublemakers' attacks against these caves." "Troublemakers? Why attack a cave?" Misty asks. Seymour turns to the group. "I'm afraid it's because of the Moonstone." "The Moonstone?" Mew asks. "Exactly," Seymour says, then explains. "The Moonstone is an awesome boulder, 1,000,000 years old or even older. Deep in these caves the meteor hides, though no explorer has found the place of the legendary rock from space. We've studied its fragments for many an hour, and discovered it increases a Pokemon's power, and that is why the attackers are here. They've come to take the Moonstone, or so I fear." "So the troublemakers are after it?" Mew asks. Seymour nods his head. "Yes. Ever since I was a little boy, I've believed that Pokémon came to Earth from outer space." "From outer space?" everyone asks, surprised. "Yes. And where, you ask, is the spacecraft that brought them here?" "In this cave. It's the Moonstone," Seymour says. "It sure is an original theory," Misty says. "But don't you see? It means that the moonstone belongs to the Pokémon. We humans must not take it from them, Seymour says. He then grabs Mew's hands and asks, "You agree with me, don't you?" Mew nods her head in reply. Suddenly, a light pink Pokémon hops past the group and is holding a greyish-blue stone with yellow and purple markings on it. It keeps calling out, "Clefairy, Clefairy, Clefairy. Worship the moonstone, gather the moonstone." "That looks like a Clefairy," Brock says. "It's so cute," Mew happily says. Mew brings out Dexter and it says, "Clefairy, the fairy Pokémon, a fairy type. This impish Pokémon is friendly, peaceful, and shy. It is believed to live inside Mount Moon, although very few have ever been seen by humans." I wonder where it's going, Mew wonders. "Wherever it's going, it has one of the moonstones," Misty says. Suddenly, they hear Clefairy screams. "Clefairy, help me!" The group turns their heads to the tunnel Clefairy leaves to. "That sounds like Clefairy," Misty says. Mew runs ahead. "It's in trouble." Down the tunnel of the cave, Clefairy is back against the wall holding the moonstone, shaking in fear. Just then, a shadow overshadows it, revealing it to be Meowth from Team Rocket. "Don't be scared of Meowth," Meowth says just then. Everyone arrives on the scene. "It's Meowth," Mew says, shocked. Meowth turns to see the group. "Meowth, what are you doing here?" "Looking for troublemakers like you," Mew sternly says. Pikachu and Eevee head to Clefairy. Pikachu says, "Pika, there's no need to worry." "Clefairy? Really?" Clefairy asks. Eve, Eevee, Eevee. "Yes, we're here to help you," Eevee says. Clefairy smiles and nods its head. Clefairy, okay. Pikachu, Eevee, and Clefairy hurry to Mew. Clefairy stands behind Mew. Mew kneels down to Clefairy. "Don't worry, we'll protect you." "Clefairy, thank you," Clefairy says. Mew then stands and turns to Meowth. "So, Team Rocket is causing all the trouble around here. What a surprise." "We gotta stop them before they cause any more trouble," Misty says. Suddenly, Jessie's voice says, "Trouble. Make that double." Jane's voice comes up. "Jessie, to protect the world from devastation." James, to unite all peoples within our nation. Jessie, to denounce the evils of truth and love. James, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jessie, Jessie, James, James. Jessie, Team Rocket blast off at the speed of light. James, surrender now, or prepare to fight. Meowth. Meowth? That's right, they sure are show-offs, Seymour comments. "Don't you guys ever get tired of saying the same things over and over?" Mew asks. "You're just jealous, girl," Jessie says. "Because we won't let you join us," James adds. Mew angrily says, "I'd never join up with you. You put the lights in this cave. It's your fault the Pokémon who live here are confused," Brock angrily says. "What a shame," Jessie says. James sarcastically says, "How will we ever forgive ourselves? We want to get our hands on the moonstone so we can power up our Pokémon with it," Meowth says. Then Jessie says, "With the moonstone in our hands, nothing will stop us." "We won't let you get away with this," Mew says. Then Brock says, "You want to rock? Take one of these, then get lost." "Get lost? How rude," Jessie sternly says. "Let's teach him manners," James adds. Mew and Brock then bring out their Pokeballs. Mew turns to Misty. "Keep an eye on Seymour and Clefairy. Make a run for it when you get the chance." "Right," Misty answers. Team Rocket jumps up and throws their Pokeballs. "Ready or not? Coughing Ekans!" Mew throws her Pokeball. "Pidgeotto, I choose you." "Here we go," Brock says, and throws his Pokeball. Pokeballs hit the ground. and Ekans and Coughing come out of their Pokeballs. And soon, Mew's Pidgeotto comes out, and a Zubat comes out of Brock's Pokeball. A Zubat, Mew says, surprised. I caught one too, Brock says. I see, Mew says. Just then, James calls out, Coughing, smog attack! Coughing begins to fly around, spraying smog around the cave. Mew calls out, Pidgeotto, Whirlwind, now. Zubat, double team, now. Brock calls out Pidgeotto and Zubat join forces and flap their wings together to blow the smog away. What's this? James asks, until he and Jessie are trapped in the smog. Not bad, Mew says. Misty turns to Seymour and Clefairy. Now's our chance. Mew turns to Clefairy. Clefairy, go with Misty and Seymour. Clefairy, okay. Clefairy says. Misty, Seymour, and Clefairy make their escape. Just then, Ekans bite into Pidgeotto. Mew gasps. Pidgeotto! Then Coughing tackles Brock's Zubat. Zubat, hang on! Brock calls out. As the group battle, Meowth is able to sneak away to go after Clefairy. Then Brock calls out, Go, Supersonic. Zubat then performs Supersonic that hit both Ekans and Coughing. Oh no, James exclaims. Soon, Ekans and Coughing are getting confused and attacking each other. Jessie shouts, Ekans! Coughing! What's the matter with you weaklings? James shouts. Ekans and Coughing are getting all confused, Brock says. Then Mew calls out, Pidgeotto, Whirlwind, now, blow them all out of the cave. Pidgeotto flies in the air and flaps its wings fast and hard. Soon, Jessie and James are caught in the wind. Ekans and Coughing hit them and are being blown away. It's time, Team Rocket blasted off, James screams. Jessie calls out, You may have run this round, but we'll be back. Soon, Team Rocket is gone. We did it. Mew happily cheers. Excellent teamwork, Brock says. Suddenly, Mew realizes something. Wait, aren't we missing someone? Yeah, something's missing, Brock says. Suddenly, they realize, where's Meowth? Suddenly, Mew feels a nudge and turns her head to see Sandshrew. She recognizes it to be the same one she helped earlier. Mew kneels down. What is it, Sandshrew? Sandshrew points its finger to a direction and says, Sandshrew, Sandshrew, Sandshrew. The Meowth you're talking about went this way. Follow me. Mew turns to Brock. Sandshrew knows where Meowth went. Let's follow it. Outside of the cave, Clefairy hops away out of the cave. Misty and Seymour are able to follow. Oh no, Clefairy's running away. Misty panics. Clefairy continues to hop up the hill as Misty and Seymour climb up the wall. Seymour calls out, Clefairy, come back. Clefairy continues to hop along the path until Meowth stands in front of it. Meowth's got you now, Clefairy cries out. Fairy! Oh no! Misty looks up. Clefairy! Clefairy then jumps off and hits Misty on the head. Soon, she, Clefairy, and Seymour fall off the cliffside and land in the water. Just then, Meowth jumps on the rock and says, Alright, give Meowth that moonstone, and shows off his claws. Seymour nervously says, Meowth, I'm sure we can be reasonable about this. Meowth pounces in the air. No, we can't. Not so fast. Meowth, Misty says, and throws her Pokeball. The Pokeball falls into the water and lands on the ground. It opens to reveal a golden-brown, starfish-like Pokemon with 5 appendages. These appendages surround an exterior organ called the core. The core resembles a golden metal casing with a red gem in the center, which is held in place by a golden ring looped around Staryu's lower left. Point Misty calls out, Staryu, swift attack. Staryu then uses its swift attack to strike at Meowth. Meowth cries out in pain. Water gun, Staryu, Misty calls out. Staryu lands on the rock and sprays a water gun into Meowth's mouth and bloats him like a water balloon. Then it flies in the air as water sprays from its mouth. Misty waves goodbye and says, "Bye, Meowth. Have a nice trip." Clefairy? Clefairy replies. Misty then calls back her Pokémon. Staryu, return. Suddenly, Mew calls out, "Hey!" Misty and Seymour turn to see Mew, Brock, Eevee, Pikachu, and Sandshrew hurrying towards them. When they arrive, Mew asks, "Is everybody alright?" "We won't be bothered by Meowth anymore, thanks to Misty the Mighty," Misty says. As the sun sets, our heroes are having something to eat. Mew and Brock give the Pokémon their food and they really love it. Mew smiles. "The Pokémon really love your food, Brock." "Thanks, Mew. This Pokémon food is made from my own secret recipe. The ingredients are specially blended for each Pokémon," Brock says. Mew then takes a piece from the jar and begins to eat the food. "They're really good. It's no wonder the Pokémon loves it," Mew says. "I've been developing it for years. I keep improving on the recipe. I'll make a batch for Pikachu." Brock says, feeding Zubat. "I'll try some," Seymour says. Seymour takes the piece and eats it, then says, "Not bad." I always wonder how Pokémon food tastes," Misty says, and takes a piece of it herself, then chews on it, but she flinches and doesn't seem to like it. "You might not like it, but the Pokémon sure do," Brock says. Meanwhile, Pikachu, Eevee, Snendashrew, and Clefairy are having conversation on the boulder close by. Mew and her friends turn to see the Pokémon talking to each other. Since Mew can understand them, she knows what Clefairy and the others are saying. "Hey guys, what's Clefairy talking about? Pika Pie, we need to get going." Pikachu says, "Clefairy, right now." Clefairy says, "What's up?" Mew asks. Eevee, follow Clefairy," Eevee says. With that, the four Pokémon hurry off. Mew turns to the others. "We'll need to follow them." Mew and the others follow them as well. Sandshrew stays with them as well. The Pokémon continue leading the others up the hill. Mew asks, "Pikachu, Eevee, where on earth are you taking us?" Clefairy and the other Pokémon jump out of the bushes and come to a stop. Mew and the others walk over to notice a cave ahead. "It's another cave," Mew says. Clefairy and the Pokémon enter the cave and walk out of the other side. Mew and the others follow. When they enter the cave, they are in awe to see a large glittering stone shining under the brightness of the full moon that shines through a large opening above. There are also small stones circling around it. "It's the core of the moon stone," Seymour says, astonished. "This feels like a dream," Misty says, amazed. "So the moonstone legend is true," Brock says. Suddenly, Mew notices, "Look, Clefairy's doing something." The Clefairy from earlier hops on a small pillar and places its stone with the others. Soon, all the stone, including the core, begins to glow bright blue. Then, all the Clefairy comes out of and in front of the stone. Not just Clefairy, their pre-evolved form Cleffa and their evolved form Clefabile arrive as well. "There are so many of them," Misty says, amazed. "Cleffa, Clefairy, and Clefable," Seymour says, astonished. One of the Clefairy steps forward and says, "Clefairy, fairy, fairy, Clefairy." "I think they're saying hello," Brock says. Mew says. The Clefairy says, "Greetings, friends, and welcome to our moonstone celebration." "Celebration?" the group says, confused. Suddenly Misty notices something amazing. Look at them. The Cleffa are moving as they hop up and down. Clefairy does the same, but they spin as they hop and in a different direction. The Clefable spins like the Clefairy, but in the same direction as the Cleffa. Amazing, these Pokémon have formed their own society. This is an incredible sight, Seymour says, impressed. Soon, Pikachu and Eevee begin to talk to Clefairy. Clefairy talks to them back. When Clefairy explains, Pikachu and Eevee are really surprised. Mew turns to her Pokémon. Say, Pikachu, Eevee, what's Clefairy been telling you anyways, huh? Pikachu and Eevee then explain to them about what the Clefairy has told them. Mew is soon amazed to hear it. Wow, it's amazing, Mew says, amazed. So what did they say? Misty asks. Mew turns to her friends. It's actually a celebration for Clefairy, Cleffa, and Clefable. They called it the Moonstone Moonlight Prayer. Moonstone Moonlight Prayer, the group says, surprised. Yes, every full moon, all the Clefairy, Cleffa, and Clefable gather together, each having a moonstone fragment. They placed it around the core and they prayed to it as they performed a dance around it. Sometimes, some of the Clefairy even evolve into Clefable. That's amazing, Brock says, but the question is why? Misty wonders. Seymour then suggests, is it because the moonstone fell from the heavens? Then maybe the legends are true. Maybe the moonstone really did come from space, Misty says. Yeah, Mew says. Suddenly, Seymour shouts in excitement, of course, it all makes sense now. What does? Mew asks. Seymour explains. Outer space. Pokémon and the human race will ride the moonstone into space. First to the moon, then to Mars, then together to the stars. Suddenly, they hear a familiar voice. Stars? That's our cue. Everyone turns around to see Team Rocket. You guys don't know when to quit, Misty says, and sticks her tongue out. This is an important ceremony for Clefairy, Cleffa, and Clefable, and the moonstone is important to them. So don't go disrupting it, Mew says. Seymour stands in front and angrily says, you keep away from the moonstone or else. Or else, James remarks. I think we've been threatened, Jessie replies. Seymour's knees begin to shake and nervously says, the moonstone belongs to the Clefairy, not to you troublemakers. Leave this cave at once. What's that unusual sound? James replies. His knees are shaking, Jessie says. Sounds like a wimp. Meowth mocks. Seymour angrily says, I'll show you, then charges at them. Don't, Seymour, Mew shouts. Seymour screams as he charges at Team Rocket. However, Meowth trips him, and he falls to the ground. Meowth mocks. Ha! Did you have a nice trip? Seymour stands up to notice his glasses are off and begins to look around. My glasses! I can't see a thing. Oh, Seymour, Misty says, worried. That wasn't fair, Mew angrily says. Soon, Team Rocket holds their Pokeballs. All's fair in a Pokemon match, you little twerpet, Jessie says. Enough talk, James says. I agree. Let's go, Pikachu. Eevee, Mew calls out. Pika, you got it, Pikachu says. Eevee, let's go, Eevee says. Onyx, let's go, Brock says, and throws his Pokeball. Soon, all the Pokemon are released from their Pokeballs. The fairy Pokemon are scared. Jessie says, let's show them that size doesn't matter. Ekans, underground. Coughing, smokescreen, James says. Ekans burrows underground while Coughing lets out a smokescreen that surrounds the area. Soon, everyone isn't able to see. Mew coughs as she brings out her Pokeball. Smoke won't stop us. Pidgeotto, I choose you. She throws her Pokeball and Pidgeotto comes out of it. Then Mew calls out, Pidgeotto. Whirlwind the smoke. Pidgeotto flaps its wings and the smoke is cleared. Soon, Team Rocket is gone, and so is the Moonstone, and there is a huge hole. Oh no, the Moonstone is gone, Mew exclaims. Team Rocket stole it, Misty says. The match was just a trick so they could sneak away with it, Mew says. Brock turns to his Onyx. Alright, Onyx. Follow them underground. Mew turns to Sandshrew. Sandshrew, you go with Onyx. Sandshrew nods its head in reply. Onyx and Sandshrew then burrow underground to find Team Rocket. There's still a chance to catch them, Mew says. With that, Mew and the others leave through the entrance they arrive from to find Team Rocket. Meanwhile, Seymour is still looking for his glasses. Just then, Clefairy brings Seymour his glasses. I beg your pardon? Seymour replies, then is able to take his glasses and put it on his face. Oh, thank you, then asks, but why aren't you chasing after the robbers that took your moonstone? The Pokémon become confused. Seymour then says, the moonstone is sacred to you, isn't it? It's your responsibility to take it back from those robbers, don't you understand me? Soon the Pokémon nod their heads and know what they need to do. Meanwhile, Team Rocket has the moonstone on a wooden sled and strapped onto it as they ride down the hill. They all laugh of their triumph. Nice guys always, Jessie says. Then James says, finish last. We just went from worst to first. Heh, Meowth replies. Suddenly, Brock's Onyx and the wild Sandshrew burst up from underground, knocking Team Rocket and the Moonstone core off their sled and falling to the ground. Soon, Mew and the others arrive on the scene. Got them, Mew says. Brock calls out, nice work, Onyx. Grab them. Now. Onyx then slithers over to capture them. But James calls out, Coughing, counterattack! Coughing then hits Onyx right on top of its head and knocks it down. Of course, Coughing then falls to the ground as well. Onyx, Brock says, concern. Suddenly, Mew notices someone coming out of the hole. Hey, look! Everyone notices that Seymour is coming out of the hole. It's Seymour, Misty says. Soon, the Clefairy, Cleffa, and Clefable are coming out as well. And the Clefairy, Cleffa, and Clefable too, Mew says. Soon, Clefairy, Clefable raises their rings and begins to move them, while Cleffa hops up and down. What are they doing? Jessie asks, waving their fingers. James replies. Soon, everyone begins to move their heads like the Clefairy and Clefable. This way and that way and this way and that way, Meowth says. I'm getting dizzy, Misty says. This is an attack the Clefairy use called the metronome, Seymour says. He's right, the metronome is very unpredictable, Mew says. Then Seymour says, I've never seen Clefairy use the metronome before. Who knows what will happen? Suddenly, all the Pokémon stop and begin to glow bright. Soon, a large explosion surrounds the area. And then, Team Rocket is flying in the air again. Jessie panics. Well, it looks like Team Rocket is blasting off again, James adds. That was the metronome, Meowth screams. Jessie screams. I give it 2 thumbs down. Me too, James agrees. Meowth 3. Meowth adds. Soon, Team Rocket is gone as Mew and her friends see the sight of the massive explosion. Wow, Mew says. Soon, glittering fragments begin to fall from the sky. The Moonstone, Seymour replies. Some of the Moonstone pieces land on some of the Clefairy and Evolve and Clefable. The Clefairy are, Brock says, amazed. Evolving, Misty adds. Mew then brings out her Pokédex. Dexter says, Clefable, the fairy Pokémon, a fairy type, and the evolved form of Clefairy. These unique creatures are among the rarest Pokémon in the world. Then turns to Cleffa. Cleffa, the star-shaped Pokémon, a fairy type, and the pre-evolved form of Clefairy. It is often seen when shooting stars fill the night skies. It's said to arrive riding on a shooting star. Then, much like Clefairy, Clefable has rarely ever been seen by humans. due to their timidness and shy nature. In fact, since they have super sensitive ears that can detect sounds from over half a mile away. The power of the moonstone did this, Seymour says. Soon, everyone returns to the cave as the Clefairy, Clefable, and Cleffer continue with their ceremony. Seymour turns to the group. I've decided to live here with them. Everyone becomes confused. It's been my life's dream to find the moonstone. Someday, I will travel to the stars with them, Seymour says. Wow, Misty says, amazed. When you do get to outer space, I hope you remember to send us a postcard, Brock says. Mew smiles, then turns her head to see Sandshrew is with Pikachu and Eevee. Mew kneels to Sandshrew. What is it, Sandshrew? Sandshrew, Sandshrew, sand. I want to come with you on your adventure, Sandshrew says. You want to come with me? Mew asks. Hearing this, Misty says, Mew, I think Sandshrew wants to be yours. Well, how can I say no? Okay, you can come, Mew says. She then taps her Pokeball on Sandshrew and it goes inside. Then with a click, Sandshrew is now in the Pokeball. Just then, Clefable and two Clefairy walk over to the ground. Clefable is holding a pink egg decorated with white stars, while the other two hold a larger fragment of the moonstone and a Pokeball. The Pokeball is like a Pokeball, but on the top one side is bluish teal and the other side is black. In the center is a yellow crescent moon. Clefable says, Clefable, Clefable, Clefable. Thank you for helping us. We like to give these to you to thank you. Treat it with love and care. That's for me? Mew asks, surprised. Wow, they're giving you a Pokemon egg, Misty says, and a piece of their moonstone, Seymour says. Then Brock says, and they're giving you a moon ball. Moon ball? Mew says, confused. It's a special Pokeball that allows you to catch Pokemon that uses moonstones to evolve. Brock says, wow, thank you, Mew says. Mew takes the Pokeball and moonstone and places them in her bag, then takes the Pokemon egg. I promise to take care of this egg, and take good care of the Pokemon that hatches from it. The next day, Seymour, Cleffer, Clefairy, and Clefable wave goodbye to Mew and the others as they set off on their journey. So long, Seymour. Goodbye, Cleffer, Clefairy, and Clefable. Mew says, goodbye, Mew. Goodbye, Pikachu. Goodbye, Eevee. And thank you all. Seymour says, waving goodbye. Mew asks, do you really think that the Clefairy really came to Earth from outer space? It's fun to imagine they did, Misty says. See, later on, Mew and the others are able to reach the crossroad and soon see a sign that reads Cerulean City and it points to the right. This road leads to Cerulean City. Well, I guess we're going the right way, Brock says, but Misty saddens to see the sign. Then Brock notices something on the sign, and there's something else scribbled here. What? Mew says, curious. Mew looks at the signs and says, Gary was here. Mew, Mew? Loza? Mew puffs up her cheeks irritated. I hate it when Gary calls me that nickname. Mew, Mew? Misty says, confused. Yeah, it's a nickname. Gary calls me just to tease me. That writing on the sign is just another way for Gary to get on my nerves, Mew says. Aw, don't pay attention to it, Brock says. He's right, you're no loser, and like you said, it's just a way for Gary to tease you. So, don't worry, Misty says. Thanks, Mew says. Then says, and now, let's go to Cerulean City. Pika, Eevee. Yeah, Pikachu and Eevee say. With that, Mew and her friends continue to walk down the path to Cerulean City and to earn her next badge. Episode 6, Waterflowers of Cerulean City. Continuing on their way to Cerulean City, Mew and her friends continue to walk on the trail. To Mew stretches her arms and says, "It sure is a nice day today." "Yeah, of course. While we're here relaxing, Gary is catching more Pokemon," Brock says. "That's true, but there's nothing wrong with relaxing once in a while," Mew says. Mew turns to her Pokemon. "Right, guys. Pika. Yeah." Pikachu says, "Eevee. That's for sure." Eevee says. Suddenly, Brock notices something that he should have a long time ago. He has wondered about it, but now comes to a shocking realization. "Wait a minute. You can understand Pokemon?" Brock asks, shocked. Mew, Misty, and the Pokemon come to a stop and realize they have forgotten to tell Brock about it. Yeah, I actually can. We're sorry we never mentioned it, but it slipped our minds. Are you mad?" Mew replies, feeling sheepish. Brock shows a serious expression. Suddenly, he brings out a pad and pencil. "Please explain." Then Misty, Pikachu, and Eevee fall over disbelief. Misty says, dumbfounded. At least Brock has taken an interest in it. "Oh, well, where do I start?" Mew says, embarrassed. The group decides to take the conversation on the road. Brock asks multiple questions about Mew's gift to understand Pokemon. Mew then explains to him about her life from beginning to end. She also tells them how she ends up with the name Mew. She also explains how Eevee and her are close like sisters. From the start of her life with Pokemon to her beginning a life with Professor Oak is an amazing story for Brock and Misty to hear. That's really amazing. You were raised by Pokemon and able to understand and learn from them. Brock says, "Yeah, and your papa sounds like a cool Pokemon. Do you have a picture?" Misty replies, "Yeah," Mew says. Mew then brings out the photo. Brock and Misty look to see the photo of Mew with Zeraora, Eevee, Professor Oak, Gary, Daisy, and Andrea. "Wow, your papa looks so cool," Misty says. "And a very rare Pokemon, and Eevee is with you too. No wonder you two are close." Brock says, "Yeah, this photo was taken a year after Professor Oak and Gary found me," Mew says. "Aw, you look like a very happy family," Misty says. "And it's amazing to see a rare Pokemon like your dad. And that you were named after Mew, the mythical Pokemon," Brock says. "And it's cute," Misty says. Then asks, "So remind me where we're going?" "Cerulean City," Mew answers. Misty suddenly panics. "Cerulean City? What are you going there for?" "Well, the guidebook said there's a Pokemon gym specializing in water types, and I plan to get a badge there. Plus, I like to transfer some of the Pokemon to Professor Oak and give my eggs a checkup," Mew says. Still skeptic, Misty says, Mew, you don't want Pokemon from there. Trust me." "Why?" Mew asks, confused. "Because they're all..." Misty answers. "All what?" Mew asks. "Very scary ghost Pokemon that look like this," Misty answers. Then makes a scary face, like monsters. "You look like a haunter with that face, but they're not a problem. Let's go," Mew says, and walks ahead. Brock and the Pokemon soon follow. Seeing them leaving, Mew panics. "Hey, wait a second," then runs in front of the group. "Hey, what about Vermilion City? It's right on the water, and there are lots of neat Pokemon, and you can watch all the giant yachts pulling into the harbor. And there's a little park way up on a hill where you can sit and watch the sunset. Like, that's so romantic." "Really?" Mew asks. "It's much nicer than that old Cerulean City. So, let's get going," Misty says. Mew smiles and says, "Okay, let's go." "Really?" Misty asks, happily. Then Mew says, "To Cerulean City." Misty then falls to the ground, disbelief. "Sorry, Misty, but Cerulean City is the closest and I like to get more badges. Mew says. Yeah, makes sense to me, Brock says. Soon, the group of friends begin to walk down the trail to Cerulean City. Misty stands back up with a groan. Ah, I never wanted to wind up back here. Later in the night, inside a strange store with machines and other stuff, everything seems quiet. Suddenly, the lid to the air vent opens, and James from Team Rocket comes out with a flashlight. James says, "The coast is clear." Then Jessie comes out. "Nothing to fear. Nobody here." Meowth says, appearing out of the vent. The three hop out of the air vent and stand on their feet. James turns on the flashlight to see the machines. They walk down the hall a little to notice what they're looking for. It looks like a green machine and a giant grey hose. Well, looks like we found it. James says, "Just what we need to get just what we want." Jessie says, "Pokémon," Meowth says. The next day, after making a stop at the Pokémon Center, Mew has a few of her Pokémon transported to Professor Oak's lab. "So, this is Cerulean City, eh, Brock?" Mew asks. "Pretty nice place, isn't it?" Brock replies. "Yeah, pretty cool," Mew says. Mew then notices someone is missing. "Hey, where's Misty? She really didn't want to come to Cerulean City, did she?" Brock says. "I wonder why she hates this place so much." Mew wonders. "I'm sure Misty has her reasons," Brock says. "Maybe," Mew says. Curious as to why Misty doesn't want to come here. Soon enough, Mew, Brock, and the other Pokémon arrive in front of the stories, especially a specific one. "Police. I wonder what happened," Mew replies. "Yeah," Brock says. The two then walk over to see. Mew asks one of the people, "Excuse me, do you know what happened here?" "Some burglars broke into the store last night," the person answers. "Burglars, huh?" Mew replies. Suddenly, someone says, "What do you know about burglars?" The group turn their heads to see Officer Jenny. Mew smiles and says, "Hi, Officer Jenny. It's great to see you again. It's me, Mew. We met in Viridian City." "Huh? Oh, you must have met my sister-in-law," Jenny says, then looks at Mew with a suspicious expression. "If you know my sister-in-law, that means you all probably have some dealings with the police in Viridian. Now, maybe you all stopped to ask her for directions, or maybe you found a wallet on the street and returned it to her," Jenny says, looking at Mew suspiciously, then brings out the handcuffs. "Or maybe you're all a gang of criminals who broke out of jail." Mew yelps and hides behind Brock. Brock answers, "We just got into town and saw the crowd, so we came here to see what was going on. The criminal always returns to the scene of the crime." Jenny says, "We're not," Brock says. Then Mew brings out her Pokédex. Maybe this will clear things up." Mew opens her Pokédex and Dexter says, "I'm Dexter, a Pokédex programmed by Professor Oak for Pokémon Trainer Mew." "Yeah, and I was the leader of the Pewter City Gym," Brock says, and brings out his gym badge. "Well, that's evidence enough for me," Jenny says, seeing the proof. Then happily says, "I'm sorry I was suspicious." She brings out her handcuffs and says, "Now I'm suspicious of my sister-in-law. She sure has weird tastes in friends." Suddenly, Brock says, Miss?" catching Jenny's attention. "I was wondering, since I'm new in town, maybe we could get together tonight and you can show me around," Brock says, which makes Mew and her Pokémon confused. But Jenny says, "Well, I'm not off duty until it's past your bedtime, and I might even have to work round the clock to catch these burglars." "What did they steal?" Mew asks. "That's the strange thing about it. They didn't take any money, just some massive vacuum and a giant hose," Jenny says, confused by this case. "What would anyone want that stuff?" Mew asks. I'm afraid I have no clue, and the security cameras were messed up too, so we can't determine who did it. Anyway, you two should get going. I got work to do, Jenny says, then calls out to the people. Come on, let's go. All right, everybody. The show's over. Nothing to see here. Break it up, break it up. Sometime later, Mew, Pikachu, Eevee, and Bog are sitting on the bench to rest. Good thing I had Dexter and you had your badge, Mew says. Yeah. Shouldn't you head for the Cerulean City Gym? Brock replies. Yeah, Mew says. Then Mew asks, So Brock, do you know anything about the gym leader? I just want to find out as much as I can about him before we have our match. Know yourself, know your adversary, and you hold the key to victory. You sure know some pretty deep stuff, Brock says. I learned that one from Dexter, Mew says, holding her Pokedex. Then says, Plus, I'm curious to know the person the gym leader is. I did read that the gym specializes in water types. Well, I never actually met the trainer here, but I know his Pokemon's special move, Brock says. Curious, Mew asks, What is it? I'm sorry, but I can't give you that information, Brock says. How come? Mew asks. I'm a gym leader too, after all. I can't tell you out of respect. You understand? Brock says. Mew nods her head. Right, I understand. Well, I have some stuff I need to check out, Brock says. What kind of stuff? Mew asks, curiously. Just stuff. See you later, Brock says, and walks off. Bye, Mew says. After separating from Brock, Mew, Pikachu, and Eevee begin to look for the Cerulean Gym. She looks around as she wonders, Cerulean City Gym. Cerulean City Gym should be right around here someplace. She then notices, there it is. The gym is a semi-circle-like building that has a pink and yellow striped roof with a dugong on it. Soon, she and her Pokemon walk inside. Inside the building, there are a crowd of people sitting on bleachers as they see a large pool with lights shining from above. Mew and her Pokemon walk inside and are shocked to see so many people in one building. The announcer says on the speakers, Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the stars of our show, the sensational Cerulean City Synchronized Swimming Sisters. Soon, the lights shine on a high diving board to see three girls on top. The one on the left has long blonde hair, green eyes, and wears a red swimsuit. The one in the middle has long indigo hair, brown eyes, and wears a green swimsuit. And the one on the right has pink short hair, blue eyes, and wears an orange swimsuit with a blue ribbon on top and red ribbons on the bottom. She soon hears the crowd shouting their names, Lily, Violet, and Daisy. Mew and her Pokemon are confused, and yet interested to see what they're going to do. The three girls then jump from the diving board, perform tricks, and splash into the water. The girls are underwater and perform swimming dances. I thought this was a Pokemon gym, Mew replies. Pikachu and Eevee are too amazed by the performance. Mew continues to watch the performance and amazed by it too. Soon, the three girls finish their performance and the crowd goes wild. The three girls exit the pool and wave to the people in the audience. After the show, Mew is rather confused about what she has seen. I can't understand it, Mew says, confused. She then notices a large display of windows and looks around to see many different water Pokemon swimming around. Suddenly, she hears a female voice. The crowd was totally awesome. Then another, I know, that was so great. Mew and her Pokemon turn their heads to see the three girls. Daisy, the dive you did was super, the indigo-haired girl says. Then the blonde-haired girl says, the practice really paid off. Totally. The pink-haired girl agrees. Then all three laugh. Mew walks over and asks, Excuse me. The three sisters stop to see Mew and her Pokémon walking to them. The pink hair girl says, I'm sorry, but if you want an interview, you have to, call our manager. No, I'm not here for that, Mew says. The pink hair girl then says, we don't do autographs. Number, not that either. I was wondering if this is the Pokemon City Gym, Mew replies. It sure is, the blonde girl answers. Okay, do you know where the gym leader is? Mew asks. You're looking at them? The blonde girl answers. Mew becomes confused. The blonde girl says, the three of us are the gym trainers here. We're the sensational sisters. The blonde is Daisy, the blue is Violet, and I'm Lily. The pink hair girl says. Then the indigo hair girl says, we're world famous. You are, but why were you three swimming and, performing? Mew asks. The pink hair girl, Lily says, it's like our hobby and our fans love to watch us perform. We pool our talents to make a big splash, the indigo girl, Violet says. Then the three girls laugh. After that, the three sisters, Mew and her Pokémon, are in front of the pool. Well, now that you're here, I ask you if I can challenge you to a battle, Mew says. Pikachu says. Eevee says. However, the three sisters don't seem to be interested. Mew and her Pokémon look at them with confused looks on their faces. Daisy answers, we don't feel much like battling anymore. What do you mean? Mew asks, confused. We just got beaten twice in a row by kids from this nowhere place called Pallet Town, Violet says. Guess I missed Gary, Mew mutters. Violet continues. It was just one defeat and then another. My eyes were spinning from the losses. We had to, practically rush all our Pokémon to the Pokémon Center, Daisy says. This is the only one left, Lily says, bringing out a Pokeball. She drops it to the ground and Goldeen appears. So, Goldeen is the only one left? Mew says. She brings out her Pokedex, and Dexter says, Goldeen, the goldfish Pokemon. A water type. Goldeen loves swimming wild and free in rivers and ponds. If one of these Pokemon is placed in an aquarium, it will shatter even the thickest glass with one ram of its horn and make its escape. Then Lily calls it back in its Pokeball. If only it would evolve into Seeking, we could use it, but all it can do now is its horn attack, Violet says. So, there's no point in battling, Daisy says. Now, instead of having matches, we have time to make ourselves look more beautiful than ever, Lily says. Mew mutters, what let down? Suddenly, Daisy says, I know what you want, then calls out, Seal! Coming out of the water is Pokemon. It hops out and lands on the side of the pool. The Pokemon is a pinniped Pokemon with a thick hide covered in bluish-white fur. It has a pale tan maw with a large red tongue and a pair of tusks on its lower jaw. It has circular eyes and a black nose. There is a small horn on its forehead, 2 flippers on its chest, and 2 more on the end of its tail. Ah, it's a seal, Mew says, then pulls out her Pokedex. Dexter says, Seal the sea lion Pokemon, a water type. Although it can't walk well on land, it is a graceful swimmer. It especially loves being in frigid seas. The seal sticks its tongue out to reveal a badge that resembles light blue raindrop. Daisy takes it out and presents it to Mew. A Cascade badge. This is what you want, right? You can have it, Skeptic Mew says. Thanks, but I would rather earn our badges. Take it. A badge is a badge. Here, Daisy says. Mew feels very skeptic about it, then says, I'm afraid I can't accept it. That makes the 3 sisters confused. Soon Mew says, I do appreciate you wanting to give me a badge, but I really want to earn my badge in a battle with my Pokemon. I may not know too much about gym battles. but I feel that a badge is the result of hours of training from a trainer and Pokémon. If we won the badge through battle, then there's a sense of accomplishment. And just being handed a badge like that, well, it just doesn't feel right. I'm glad you think so, a familiar voice says. Mew, Pikachu, Eevee, and the three sisters turn their heads to see Misty. Misty? Mew says, surprised. Misty then jumps off the stands and lands in front of the sisters. Alright, Daisy. If you don't want to battle them, I will. Hearing that Mew comes to realize, Misty, are you saying that you're actually one of the Cerulean gym leaders? Misty says, I'm sorry for not telling you about it before, Mew. But now, I'm telling you right here and now that I'm a Cerulean City trainer, too. I am the fourth sensational sister. Suddenly, Lily says, there are only 3 sensational sisters and 1 runt. Misty growls in anger. Daisy then says, so, little sister, it's a surprise to see you back so soon. That little girl with the big mouth who said she wouldn't come back till she was a great Pokémon trainer, wasn't that you? Violet says. I guess I did say something like that when I left, Misty says. Suddenly, Lily says, Misty, you left here pretending you wanted to become a Pokémon trainer because you couldn't compare with us because we're obviously much more talented and beautiful than you are. That wasn't the reason, Misty yells, shouting at her sisters. Mew kneels to Pikachu and Eevee, then whispers, I'm starting to see why Misty is against us coming here. Her sisters aren't being very nice to her. Suddenly they hear Daisy saying to Misty, well then, I guess, like, you came back because you couldn't make it as a Pokémon trainer. Suddenly Mew says, hold on, Misty was with me when we were traveling. I'm the one who insisted on coming here to have a battle, but it looks like I'm not going to have one with you 3. Then turns to Misty. Alright, Misty, I ask for an official Pokémon gym match. Misty smiles with determination. Okay, Mew, I accept your challenge. Ready to rumble? Let's do it, Mew says. Soon enough, Misty and Mew are standing on platforms on opposite sides of the pool. Alright, Mew, we'll have a 2-on-2 Pokémon battle. The winner is when both Pokémon from either side are unable to battle, Misty says. Okay. Your gym, your rules, Mew says. Mew then turns to her Pokémon. Eevee, how about you take the first battle? Eevee. My pleasure, Eevee says and hops on the platform. Alright, Staryu, go, Misty says, and throws her Pokeball. Then Staryu comes out of the Pokeball. A Staryu, huh? Mew says, and brings out her Pokedex. Dexter says, Staryu, the star-shaped Pokemon, a water type. The core of this water Pokemon shines in a rainbow of 7 colors, a core that is valued by some as a type of jewelry. Cool Pokemon, Misty, Mew calls out. Thanks, but we have a battle to do, Misty says. At the stand, Violet asks, do you think Misty could really win? Like in her dreams, maybe, Lily says. Okay, Eevee, use Tackle, Mew calls out. Eevee then performs Tackle as she jumps from one platform to another, then knocks Staryu to the ground. Misty calls out, Staryu, counterattack. Staryu then performs the same attack. Eevee, dodge, Mew says. Eevee dodges the attack. Staryu lands on the platform, and Eevee then tackles Staryu from behind, then tackles again. Misty calls out, Staryu, water gun. Staryu jumps in the water and sprays Eevee. Staryu performs multiple water guns, but Eevee dodges the attack. Okay, Eevee, use Swift, Mew calls out. Eevee then performs a Swift attack and it hits Staryu with full force. Soon, Seal begins to clap with glee. Violet asks, which side are you clapping for? Misty calls out, Staryu, use Tackle. Use tackle too, Eevee, Mew calls out. With that, both Pokémon begin to use tackle. Of course, Staryu bounces in and out of the water, while Eevee bounces on the platforms, floating on the water. Misty then says with confidence, "If Staryu can get Eevee underwater, I win. Water Pokémon always have the edge in the water," then laughs with confidence. Mew feels a bit, well, uncomfortable about Misty's confidence. At the stand, Daisy says, "Misty's totally awesome. Well, we three got the good looks in the family, so I guess she had to get some talent," Lily says. Staryu is able to strike at Eevee and she falls into the water. Luckily, Eevee is able to swim in the water and swims back to the platform. Mew calls out, "Alright, Eevee, return here." Eevee, "Okay," Eevee says. She then jumps on the platform until she is on the same one Mew is. Mew then brings out her Pokeball. "Pidgeotto, I choose you." Then Pidgeotto comes out of it. Misty then calls back her Pokemon. "Staryu, return." She brings out another Pokeball. "I choose Starmie." The Pokemon comes out almost like Staryu, but has another 5 sets of points, and has a pinkish red color gem, and it's the color violet. Starmie. Huh. That's the evolved form of Staryu, Mew says. Then holds her Pokedex, and Dexter says, "Starmie, the mysterious Pokemon, a water type, and the evolved form of Staryu. Its sparkling core is called the Gem of the Sea. This core can be made into high-priced accessories that are traded in secret." Mew calls out, "Pidgeotto, whirlwind it away." Pidgeotto does just that and Starmie tries to stand its ground. Starmie calls out, "Dive under then up." Starmie dives under the water, then jumps out of the water and tackles Pidgeotto. It spins around and is coming back. Mew calls out, "Strike it back with Wing Attack." Pidgeotto then strikes at Starmie with Wing Attack and throws it back. Starmie suddenly spins back and tackles Pidgeotto. Starmie spins and flies away, then maneuvers for another attack. Mew calls out, "Pidgeotto, quick, use your Gust Attack." Pidgeotto then performs Gust Attack, and it's enough to push Starmie away and slams to the wall. Starmie then falls to the ground. "Starmie," Misty says, concerned. Suddenly, the gem on Starmie begins to flash. Misty says, "Oh, no, Starmie's energy is just about to run out." "Okay, Pidgeotto, let's finish this," Mew says. Suddenly, they hear an explosion, followed by rumbling, making the building shake. Everyone turns their attention to the wall that begins to crack and then bursts out to reveal a green machine with a giant grey hose. "Check out that hair," Violet asks. Daisy then asks, "Like, who invited the party crashers?" Suddenly, Team Rocket rises from inside the machine. Jessie, "Sorry to break in on you, ladies." James, "Allow us to introduce ourselves." Jessie, "To protect the world from devastation." James, "To unite all peoples within our nation." Jessie, "To denounce the evils of truth and love." James, "To extend our reach to the stars above." Jessie, James, James. Jessie, Team Rocket blast off at the speed of light. James, "Surrender now, or prepare to fight." Suddenly, Meowth lands in front of his teammates. "Meowth, Meowth, that's right. Team Rocket," Misty and Mew exclaim. James says, "The water Pokémon have the advantage." "But if we steal that water away," Jessie says. "Then the Pokémon are ours for the taking," James says. Meowth says, "And Meowth knows just how to do it." "What are they trying to prove?" Violet asks. Just then, the giant machine and hose begin to suck up the water. Mew looks at the machine, a massive vacuum and a giant hose. Mew gasps, "Team Rocket were the robbers who broke into that store back there. I should have known it was them." Daisy says, distressed. Our swimming pool. They're sucking it dry. Misty says, shocked. Lily says, that's our water. Right. I should give it back. Meowth says, then reverse the flow of the water and at the girls. Misty cries out, we've got to protect the Pokémon. Like, what about my hair? Violet cries out, alright, now's the time to suck 'em up, Meowth says. Meowth puts the vacuum back in forward and starts sucking up the water and all the Pokémon trapped in it. Seal cries out, Seal, help, come back, Seal. Violet cries out. Suddenly, Pikachu and Eevee are swept away in the water. Mew cries out, Pikachu, Eevee! Pikachu and Eevee continue to be pulled into the machine. Suddenly, Mew has an idea. Hey, wait a second. Water conducts electricity. Pikachu, Thunderbolt, Pikachu. I'm on it, Pikachu says, then let out a Thunderbolt. Team Rocket screams in agony as they are being shocked by the Thunderbolt. Then the bad guys become paralyzed. It's times like these that make me want to go straight, James says. Then they all fall into the water. Now I know how it feels to be all washed up, James says, paralyzed. Then Jessie says, we'll never come clean. Soon, Team Rocket is sucked into the machine and comes out through the other end. And as usual, they are sent flying. Finally, Team Rocket screams. Looks like Team Rocket's blasting off again. In the gym, Pikachu and Eevee continue to be pulled in by the hose. Daisy worriedly says, oh no, Pikachu, Eevee. Misty panics. Mew runs around the pool as fast as she can to turn off the machine. Pikachu and Eevee are soon sucked down into the water and pulled into the hose. Mew quickly reaches the machine and climbs on it. She jumps to the switch and screams, no! Finally, she pulls the switch down, causing the machine to reverse. Pikachu and Eevee fly out. Pikachu lands in Daisy's arms while Eevee lands in Lily's. After that, they see the damage has been done to the gym. Misty says to Mew, hey, we never got to finish our match. Yeah, our battle ended up washed up, Mew says. Then Violet says, you could say your match had to be postponed, like, due to drain. At least nobody lost, Lily says. But Misty says, I wanted to win. I guess I'm not going to get that Cascade badge, Mew says, feeling a bit disappointed. But Daisy says, wrong. We're giving this badge to you, then presents her the badge. Mew becomes confused. Misty then asks, how come she gets the badge? She didn't win. Pikachu was like, the one who totally saved us all. And if she used Pikachu from the start, there's no way your water Pokemon would have won, Daisy says. Oh, man. Misty says, disappointed. Take the badge, Mew. You deserve it, Daisy says. Are you sure? Mew asks. I'm sure, Daisy says. Thank you, Mew says. Later on, Mew and Misty are ready to set off on their journey. Lily says to Misty, Misty, you just go right on trying to become a Pokemon trainer. You might as well be good at something, 'cause you'll never be stars like us. You keep that up and you'll be seeing stars, Misty angrily yells. Violet calmly says, chill out, Misty. Be careful, you know we love you, Daisy says. Misty smiles and says, yeah, hey Mew, Brock's voice calls out. The girls turn their heads to see Brock running to them. Hi Brock, Mew says. Brock then asks, how did it go? I got the Cascade badge, Mew says, showing it to Brock. Cool, let's go, Brock says. Right, Mew says. Then turns to Misty. Ready, Misty? Sure, let's go, Misty says. With that, Mew, Misty, Brock, Pikachu, and Eevee walk away. With that, Mew and Misty explain to Brock about their match and how Team Rocket end up disturbing it because of their schemes. Anyway, Mew ends up with the Cascade badge, and so they all continue on with their journey.